What a game. The Indiana Fever snap the New York Liberty's undefeated streak.
The word undeniable exists for a reason, and it applies to Caitlin Clark. She is just absolutely undeniable, and her return to the Indiana Fever showed it once again. It felt like a jolt of energy to the WNBA, obviously to the Indiana Fever.
The WNBA just pulled off what might be the most embarrassing move in sports history. After Caitlin Clark came back from injury and absolutely torched the defending champs with 32 points, someone in the league decided she needed a drug test for the 11th time this season. The internet's reaction? Swift, brutal, and downright hilarious. The league is now drowning in backlash they didn't see coming. So, what do you think? Is the WNBA deliberately sabotaging their biggest star, or are they just that clueless?
I'm gonna say it. Caitlin Clark is the best basketball player in the world. She's the best basketball player that I have ever seen. She is the difference maker. She is the needle mover. She is the face of basketball right now. It's really hard not to recognize the difference that she makes on the Indiana Fever, a team that was obviously struggling with playmaking, struggling with pacing, struggling with the things that make us want to watch. And she steps into that court, and in the first quarter, she made...
Let's start with the facts, because they're so outrageous. They sound fictional. Caitlin Clark returns from a 5-game injury absence and immediately drops 32 points on the defending champion, New York Liberty. She leads the Indiana Fever to a statement win, snapping New York's undefeated streak in the process. A performance like that should be celebrated, right? Instead, her reward was a mandatory drug test. According to multiple reports, this marked Clark's 11th drug test of the season. For comparison, most WNBA players undergo drug testing 3 times during the regular season and once during the off-season. That's the standard. Clark, apparently, is on the deluxe package. Apparently, someone in the WNBA office took one look at Caitlin Clark's stat line, 32 points after 5 games off, and thought, no way that's legit. Because clearly, talent, preparation, and elite basketball IQ just aren't good enough explanations. Nope, it had to be performance-enhancing drugs. The reaction online? Swift and Savage. One fan joked, she tested positive for goat blood, and honestly, that might be the most accurate drug test result in the history of sports. Another chimed in. While they're at it, they should drug test Scott Foster, which, let's be honest, might be the most reasonable take anyone's had about WNBA officiating all year. The humor is biting, but the sentiment is real. Fans are frustrated that instead of celebrating one of the best single-game performances of the season, the league's first instinct was to question its legitimacy. It's not just tone-deaf, it's telling. When your top star puts on a masterclass, the story shouldn't be suspicion. It should be celebration.
Keep it down! Go! Yeah! Good job! No, we get.
Good job. Squad needed it. Played Fever way. I love it. More of them.
But the real standout comment came from a fan who joked, forget a drug test. They should have done a DNA test to make sure she's actually human. And honestly, they might be onto something. What Caitlin Clark pulled off against the Liberty didn't just defy expectations, it defied logic. 3 deep threes in just 38 seconds to start the game? That's not typical elite play. That's video game levels of ridiculous. The timing of what followed couldn't have looked worse for the league. Clark had just missed 5 games with a quad injury. She returns against the top team in the league and immediately reminds the entire basketball world why she's the face of the sport. Her comeback wasn't just impressive, it was historic. The Fever dropped a franchise record 17 threes, and Clark looked like she hadn't missed a single possession. The buzz was electric. Highlight reels went viral. Fans were back in full force. And how did the league respond? By testing her. It's the kind of move that has people shaking their heads. Instead of celebrating one of the most dominant and inspirational returns we've seen all year, the WNBA seemed more concerned with discrediting it. The optics? Let's just say they make the Titanic's last turn look like a minor steering issue. We're talking about the player who's brought in millions of new viewers, shifted the national conversation, and made WNBA games appointment television. Yet after her best game in weeks, she's treated like a suspect, not a superstar. Yes, the league claims drug tests are random, but 11 tests in one season? That starts to look less like randomness and more like a pattern. Most players get tested the minimum number, 3 times a season, maybe 4 if the dice roll wrong. But Clark? She's apparently on the premium plan, complete with post-game specimen requests whenever she plays too well. IT sends the wrong message, not just to Clark, but to fans, players, and sponsors. When greatness shows up, celebrate it. Don't interrogate it.
Congrats on your great performance.
Thanks.
Just want to let you know you have a huge fan base in Hong Kong.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And
hopefully I'll get there one day.
And today, there are 5 Hong Kong fans fly from Hong Kong to
No way.
Indiana.
Oh my gosh.
And the hour is 22 hours.
No
Your
way.
number.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wish I could have
just
met
want to say
them.
this, including me.
If you know them, tell them thank you for coming. That's
So-
incredible.
Yeah. So any plans you will visit Hong Kong with your teams in the future years?
Yeah, maybe we'll head to Hong Kong after the season. I mean, I certainly hope to go to Hong Kong one day. It's incredible to see the type of reach that we can have and how much people love basketball across the globe. So that's really cool. So if you know them, tell them I say hello and thanks for coming as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Hope one day to show you around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
What makes this situation even more unbelievable is that Caitlin Clark's dominance didn't come out of nowhere. There's no surprise breakout that would justify any raised eyebrows. She's been this kind of player since college. Deep three-pointers, uncanny passing ability, and vision that almost feels superhuman. That's always been part of her game. For those who followed her journey, performances like the one in question are her standard when she's healthy. So, when the WNBA decided to conduct drug testing after this particular performance, it sent a troubling message. Either the league doesn't grasp how exceptional Clark truly is, or they can't accept that her brilliance is entirely natural. Neither option reflects well on leadership. That game against the Liberty wasn't a fluke. It was Clark returning to her usual level of excellence after recovering from an injury. She reminded fans that Indiana with her is a completely different team. The offense clicks, teammates shine, and suddenly they're pushing elite competition. Instead of celebrating that return, fans were met with headlines about drug tests. On social media, the reaction was harsh. Some even joked that the league was sabotaging its own growth. When your star player delivers the type of performance that should be universally praised, and your response is a lab test, it's hard to argue the league understands how to market success. Compare that to other pro sports. When Steph Curry drops a barrage of threes, or an NFL quarterback throws for 400 yards, it becomes highlight reel material. They don't face suspicion, they're celebrated. Yet in the WNBA, outstanding play seems to invite scrutiny. One biting comment summed it up perfectly. Clark has undergone more drug tests than she's had actual marketing support from the league. That hits at the heart of a broader issue. The WNBA doesn't seem to know how to handle a once-in-a-generation star. The timing made it worse. This was Clark's comeback game. Fans tuned in specifically to watch her return. She exceeded expectations, generated viral clips, and gave the league the attention it desperately seeks. Instead of riding that wave, they followed it up with news of a drug test. Even if the testing policy is technically random, optics matter. When the same player keeps getting picked, especially after standout performances, it starts to feel less like a random process and more like targeted oversight. Ironically, Clark is exactly what the league needs, a player who moves merchandise, boosts ratings, and draws attention beyond the typical fan base. Yet instead of building around her, it seems they're more focused on interrogating her success. Fan reactions show just how damaging this is. The jokes online have been relentless, from sarcastic takes about testing for basketball talent to calls for testing other players just to understand why they're not playing at her level. People are laughing, not at Clark, but at the league's decisions to make matters worse. The WNBA is currently in the middle of negotiations around salaries and working conditions. The optics of treating your biggest star like a suspect doesn't exactly scream player-first management. There's a glaring inconsistency here. When Clark performs at her peak, she's tested. That sends the wrong message to aspiring stars. If you shine too brightly, you'll be treated with skepticism. Fans haven't held back. Some of the jokes are creative, but behind the humor is real frustration. Suggestions that Clark must be taking vision enhancers or court IQ boosters highlight how ridiculous the whole thing looks to outsiders. And then there's the reality. 11 drug tests in a season compared to the average of 3? Statistically, that's not random, that's targeted. The chances of that happening by coincidence are negligible. The game that allegedly triggered this latest test showcased everything fans love about Clark: flawless shooting, brilliant vision, and clutch decision-making. The idea that such a display could only be possible through chemical help is insulting, not just to her, but to her trainers and the rehab team who helped her recover properly. This reaction from the league has also overshadowed meaningful basketball discussion. Instead of celebrating player development or team improvement, we're talking about testing protocols. That's a failure of focus. Clark's impact is global. She even mentioned fans flying in from Hong Kong to see her play. And what do those fans get? News that she's being tested because she's too good. That's not how professional sports should operate. The WNBA turned what should have been a moment of triumph into a PR nightmare. If elite performances always lead to extra scrutiny, what message are you sending? Beyond the court, fans have invested emotionally and financially in Clark. They've bought jerseys, traveled for games, and supported the league in ways it's never seen. To respond to that with suspicion feels like a betrayal. The psychological toll shouldn't be ignored either. Imagine leading a team and knowing your star gets drug tested every time she excels. That's not sustainable for team morale. From a business standpoint, this is self-sabotage. Clark is a revenue magnet. Ticket sales, viewership, and merchandise all spike when she plays. Yet the league is undermining its own biggest asset. Even sports journalists, usually cautious with criticism, are openly questioning the league's choices. When neutral observers call foul, something's off. The players' union should be up in arms. If Clark can be treated this way, what protection do other players have? Historically, women's sports have battled for legitimacy. And now, when the WNBA finally has a megastar with mainstream pull, their reaction is doubt instead of trust. That's not growth, that's regression. If Clark were artificially outperforming the competition, we'd hear demands from opposing teams. Instead, they acknowledge her talent. They just struggle to defend against it. That's not cheating. That's greatness. The fanbase has rallied behind her, creating a clear divide between supporters and league leadership. When your own audience turns against your decisions, your role as a sports league is compromised. Ultimately, this controversy has become louder than the game itself, and that's the real failure. Instead of stories about Clark's comeback or Indiana's rise, we're talking about test tubes and timing. This episode reveals a deep misunderstanding of success within the WNBA's leadership. They say they want the spotlight, then dim it when it shines too brightly on one player. In the end, Clark's return should have been a victory lap. Instead, it turned into damage control. And when a star player's excellence causes more headaches than celebrations, something's gone seriously wrong at the top.